Hi everybody and welcome to the video and live streaming show. My name's John Lacey and as always I'm joined by Sam Proof. Today on the show we have a very special guest that I'm really excited to bring you, and I'll introduce her in a moment. But firstly, Sam, how are you going? How's your week been? I suspect it's been another hectic one.
Pretty much, yeah. It's every week is like, a million things to have been done. We're like real close to actually like getting this place set up, and like all the boxes are empty. And then Betty is finally getting her birthday, which was 2 months ago at this point. But yeah, we're moving forward, so it's nice. How's things with you, John?
Things are going pretty well with me. It's funny. I've been playing with sort of all the OBS things, and I've got all the Stream Deck buttons. So the way we've started doing this show is actually quite different. So
Yeah.
I'm enjoying it, but it's a whole new world. It's a very brave thing. So we are going out live to all the various places. So please let me know if you are watching, where you're watching from, and how you're doing this week. But don't forget to use that hashtag Team Live thing that I'm always forever trying to make happen. And if you're watching later on, you can do hashtag Team Replay. And Said's joining us from Germany, where it's ridiculously late at night, or
Yep.
possibly very early in the morning, saying congratulations on 44 followers, John. Very satisfying number. Thank you very
Oh yeah,
much.
that's great.
And hello to Scott Benedict, who's joining us as well. So let's, without any further ado, let's bring our special guest on. It's Tanya Smith from Stream Like a Boss TV, Get Noticed with Video, and of course, actor of the Club. Welcome to the show.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm excited to be here on a Friday.
Nice.
This is Fun Friday for me, but I know for you, isn't it Saturday morning?
It is, yes. Yeah, here in the future, it's already Saturday morning. So it's the joy of time zones, and I sort of mentioned that Saeed, like, it's ridiculously, like, I think it's almost midnight in Germany, but some people
Yeah.
come to the show anyway, and we love that for them. So thank you for joining us. Hello to Business Ghost Ready, who's watching over on YouTube as well from the UK. So I love that we have such an international audience. It's amazing. But let's get stuck in to today's content, because I'm very excited. Tanya is literally one of my favorite people on the planet, and again, Stacey Moore is very excited to see you. Hashtag Team Tanya. So it's nice to have your company, Stacey. But I guess to start off, Tanya, what is it about video and live streaming that you are so passionate about?
Oh, goodness. There's like a whole laundry list of things, but I would say the thing that I think has been has given me the most enthusiasm is the fact that it allows you, live streaming in particular, allows you to reach people of all types, all kinds, all locations. Look, I mean, you just demonstrated that a few minutes ago by listing out people in Germany. You're in Australia. I'm in Dallas, Texas. I mean, we're everywhere, and we can come together and talk about things that are of interest to us all, and then go about our merry way after we're done. But I just love the conversational aspect of it. That's fun for me.
Nice. And I know you, like, if I look, into the archives of your YouTube channel, like, I know there's stuff from like 12, 13, 14, 15 years ago. So how did you get started, and what did that look like back then?
So back then, I was I was really not heavily into live streaming, and honestly, it was like pulling teeth. It was like going to the dentist to get me on camera. um, I truly was an audio person. I still do love audio on some level, but I was the person who was saying, why don't I just do a voiceover slides? So if you go back that far, much of what I did was probably screen sharing. I probably used a lot of PowerPoint decks. I was using cartoons. I had a caricature that was created for me. Anything to do that would keep me off camera was what I was doing when I first started, because it was difficult. I'm a real introvert, as I think you know, John.
Yes, absolutely. And I must admit, I was reflecting on the time I was on your show, and I don't remember exactly how long ago it was, probably at least a year by now. And I don't know how obvious it was at that point in time, but the minute you went live, like my entire life flashed before my eyes. My eyes started watering. I was literally pinching my leg underneath the desk to try and snap out of it. And it was like after a couple of minutes, we were just talking. And I guess in some ways, I think that's your superpower, is that you make people feel incredibly relaxed and comfortable to be a part of that. But I know we've had many conversations about being an introvert. And I think that's the thing the extroverts don't understand, is it actually requires a lot of me just to drag myself in front of the camera in the first place,
Yes.
let alone do the show, let alone ask the
Yeah.
questions and all of that stuff. So I guess if you do have someone who's a little bit nervous about being on camera, what kind of advice would you give them?
One of the most important things that I've done to grow in this area is to recognize that when you're speaking on a stream, when you're speaking on video, you really are speaking to one person. Because the more individualized you can have that conversation, or the more personal you can make that conversation, the easier it will be. And I learned this before I started doing the on-camera stuff. I just didn't realize I could translate it over into virtual space until after I had really started. One of the things that I was doing outside of the video world is I was doing more networking in person. And I would go to these networking clubs and organizations, and we'd be passing out business cards. And I always felt really fake. I always ended up kind of just being off in a corner because I didn't know how to inject myself into the conversation, right? And then at some point I realized, okay, I'm not like them. I don't need to talk to 500 people. I just want to meet one person or two people. And so I started making that my goal. And it became easier because instead of me feeling like I had to meet a whole bunch of people and just have these broad conversations about nothing, I could meet one person and have a really in-depth conversation and really have interest, show interest in them, and they show interest in me, and walk away feeling like it was worth my time. So that translated well over into the video world, because I recognized at some point, like, what if I just treat the camera like it's that one person? And the more I did that, the more personal it became for me, but also for the people who were watching, because they felt like, hey, she's having a conversation with me. What she's saying is for me, which it is, versus me imagining that there's a crowd of tens of thousands of people, which then becomes scarier.
Right. Do you think you utilize video and live streaming in different ways?
I do personally. I do. And that's an excellent question, because that's something I think that comes up a lot, is the difference between, and I'm going to qualify it by saying produced or pre-recorded video versus live stream. For me, there's differences. For me, the live streaming is a way for me to bond and nurture my audience, to build community, to create engagement. Whereas the produced videos, for me at least, the pre-recorded videos are a bit more polished. They're a bit more rehearsed and structured, and they're intended more for awareness building. So you don't know me, but you might happen to see me in a short or on a TikTok or in an Instagram reel. And once you know a little bit about me, that's kind of like the teaser, the produced video, then we can really have conversation and engage and have, community building. Now we're family. Like on my show, I usually say, hey, you're hashtag OG if you've been here before, you're hashtag newbie if you're brand new and you've never been here. And it's a little bit of a different kind of feel for me for each of those types.
Nice. I just want to check in with the chat for a moment. So I guess there's a lot of people who are identified as introverts. And Saeed does this thing where he describes himself as a textrovert, which is sort of an extrovert while he's in the text of the chat, which I'm very much the same. And I don't know, like I never really want to speak on behalf of introverts everywhere, but I love to go deep into the topics that I'm really passionate about. And the thing that I just can't stand is making small talk with people I don't know.
Oh yeah.
Like, please don't ask me about the weather. I just lose all will to live. So, definitely think about that. And again, Scott's alluding to something, and I'm sure you can elaborate on this. I've heard advice to put a picture of a person behind the camera to help facilitate this.
Yeah, definitely have done that. Some of the early clients that I worked with, what I would have them do is do exactly that. Take a picture from, when we used to have like physical magazines, when people would buy those. Take a picture of your ideal target audience member. Like, who do you really want to talk to when you're speaking about a certain topic? And then having that, dead center next to your camera. So now not covering the lens, of course, but somewhere in that vicinity so that your eye contact is still being made, and it feels like you're connecting. But now these days, I don't even know necessarily that the clients that I work with are even having that challenge as much as they are simply being focused on the content. Like, what do I say is a big question. What am I even talking about? And maybe that's just because of the types of people that I'm working with on a client basis now are probably a little bit more audience savvy. But early on, I worked with a lot of beginners and people who were getting used to just being on camera in the first place.
Because I guess that's the thing. Like, it's not a particularly natural thing for us to be doing. And I know a lot of us have been working at home for the last few years for reasons we won't even get into. And maybe we're a little bit more used to doing that. But it is something I think you really do need to practice to get better at. But even just get practice to get comfortable with.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the more you do it, and I always talk about the more confident you become when you're more competent, and you become more competent by putting yourself out there more. The more you get on camera, the more comfortable you start to get with, okay, so now I know where these buttons are. Right? Now I know what this dashboard looks like. Now I know, how to navigate the comments, and that makes you more competent so that you then become more confident, and that shows up. Because whatever you're feeling, I don't know if you both have experienced this, but whatever you're feeling at the time you get on camera, it can expand greatly on video.
Yeah, I mean, getting on camera is just 10% of the job, right?
Yes. Then you got to have the energy level, and you've got to be, like deep into your conversation and really excited about it. Otherwise, people don't get excited because you're not excited.
Absolutely. And Saeed mentioned something too. I would rather do 6 hours of live streaming than record myself for 5 minutes. And I think there's something deeply counterintuitive about this, but especially if you're a bit of a perfectionist, you can do a million takes on a recorded video and still not release it. And in some ways, I think you do need to just roll with the punches a little bit when you're going live. Do you agree with that, Tanya?
Absolutely. That's one of the reasons why I chose to go live versus just consistently doing uploaded videos, because I love the transparency of it. Just like Saeed said, I love the ability to be able to get on and be totally authentic, and whatever you get is what you get. No apologies needed. It's who you are. And so when you're trying to do the perfected, produced videos, it's a bit different because people have a different set of expectations than they do when you're live. If your doorbell rings, if the dogs are barking, if the kids are saying, "Hey, Mom, I'm hungry," whatever it is they hear and see, that is really you. And I think right now in this moment where so many people are, I guess, diverting over into automation and bots, and I know you don't love that space, AI, et cetera. There are people that are craving real human interaction, and I think that live streaming gives you just that.
Yeah,
and I guess
the audience is. No, go on, John.
Sorry, Sam. We're probably going to be talking over each other all day.
It's three people. It's going to do it.
Yeah. But I guess the other thing is I love, like, don't get me wrong, I love creating a piece of standalone content that's been produced and edited and all of the things. And I actually enjoy video editing and audio editing. But the thing I found is it's just lonely without the participation of a live audience. And it's just not as much fun for me.
Yeah. And look, the cool thing is that we get to choose both. We get to do a variety of things. I think that live stream people, we are some of the most versatile people in the whole entire world, because we can do both. We can have these conversations on camera with other people, and then we can also move a little bit, and shift and do the produced videos if we choose to do that too. And especially if you have editing superpowers, right? So I think that the beauty of today is that we have all the digital tools at our disposal to be able to use however any of us chooses to do it. And not everybody's going to choose video. Some people will choose audio and they will stick with that. Some people will choose text-based content. And I think that this is just a beautiful time to live and to be in the world, because we have access to so much that we can use for content creation.
How often are you releasing different kinds of content like audio and live stream and video?
Yeah, so I start with live stream, which is my consistency. It's at the core of everything I do. So I do a weekly live stream. Although, Sam, I did something this year. As a result of some things that happened with burnout for me last year.
Oh, sure.
This year, I made a decision that I would give myself a week off every month. So I'm not doing every Thursday, every week of the year. I'm now doing at least 3 Thursdays for the month. And then I might take a break, and I'm okay with that. And it's not going to hurt anybody, or I'm not worried about my numbers taking a nosedive or any of that. So I do the weekly live stream. And from that, what I recently made a decision to do is stop trying to go into all these different multi-directions. I take that and turn that into an audio podcast. I take that and turn that into other short vertical clips, quotes and images, all kinds of other different content, a blog if I wanted to do that, a newsletter, an email, so that I have started by putting my attention and my effort into that 1 hour with the stream. And then the rest of my attention can be focused on serving my coaching clients.
Nice. And I think we'll get stuck into a little bit more about your workflows and tech stacks and all that nerdy stuff that we like to geek out about on this show in just a moment. But this is the video and live streaming show. Today we're talking to Tanya Smith. We'll be back in just a moment.
We are constantly training our cats every interaction that we have with them. Mm-hmm. So when Johan would get on my counter before, this is 10 years ago, before I was the cat expert that I am now, Johan would jump on the counter. What was the first thing I did? I'd say his name, Johan. He loves that. That's a reward for him. He said, you just said my name. I would go over to him and I'd talk to him and be like, you can't be on the counter. Johan loves when I talk to him. Ding, that's another reward for Johan. I'd pick him up and put him on the ground, but I didn't want him to think I was mad at him. So when I'd pick him up very nicely and kiss him on the head and say, I love you, but you can't be here. I'd put him on the ground. I had just done 3 things that rewarded him for being on the counter. So I was encouraging him to continue doing that.
And that's a promo for Sam's podcast, Just Kidding Around, which you can learn more about over at Cute Avalanche. And again, Tanya, I don't know if you know, but Sam and his wife and family, they foster kittens and they live stream them as a way of getting them off the streets.
Oh, yep. I did not know. I'm a foster dog mom.
Oh, nice.
So I fostered at least 3. 2 of them were foster fails because we kept them for 5 years. Nice. But yeah, I'm actually looking now to foster. I've been kind of studying and doing some research and checking out different places, because a lot of our shelters locally are very full.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, here too. Any of the warmer states, it's like, here it's like year round. You just can't, the shelters can't get rid of cats and dogs fast enough.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. That's cool. Yeah.
And I'll just briefly check in with a chat before we continue. So Business Growth Ready totally agrees on the introvert. So let's, stop the small talk and fix something or press some buttons. I can totally relate to that. Scott says you have to over project for it to extend beyond the camera. So yes, you definitely do need to bring that extra energy. Stefan is joining us as well from Sweden. Looking forward to the show. And hello to Roy Kowalski, who's joining us from Sydney as well. So today we are talking to the one, the only Tanya Smith from Stream Like a Boss TV and Get Noticed with Video, and of course the App Therapy Club podcast, which I want to talk about in a moment. But I guess the thing about you, Tanya, is that you're an incredibly savvy business person and you're all about the systems and processes. I don't think I said this earlier, but I feel like in some ways you and Sam are fairly kindred spirits in that way. I know Sam loves a good spreadsheet. I know you love your Airtable databases. So I guess for today's conversation, we focus less on the business stuff and more on the live streaming stuff. But I am sort of curious, like, what are the things that go into the process of producing your live show? And like, what are the things that you have to think about and plan for? And what kind of tools are you using to make it all happen?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. Because as you know, I have a lot of different, I love to experiment. So let me say that. I love to experiment. And so I love to look for ways to help me to be more efficient, more productive. I need to get 1,000 things done. And generally, it's just me. I have been interviewing for a teammate, but it has been me for a long time. And I've been coaching now for 20 years. So I don't mind the grind. I don't mind working really hard on something that I'm passionate about and I love, but I also love the idea of automation. So for me, I look at 3 different buckets for everything I do, and I'll talk a little bit about some of the things that are in my tech stack. If I don't want to act on it, then I want to automate it, or I'm going to assign it to someone else. So act, automate, and assign, that's my bucket, right? That's my set of buckets that I work with all the time. So any tasks that I'm doing that are repetitive and recurring, if I can find a way to put some automation on it, it's all good. And I have been able to find a lot of really amazing tools, some of which are lifetime deals where I paid one time, as you know, we'll probably get into that a little bit, but I paid one time and I'm still using this thing, this tool, this platform for years later. Currently, if I had to pick my number one way about organizing for my live streams and the rest of my content, I don't use Airtable right now.
Wow.
I use Smart Suite because of somebody that's in your chat. Scott Benedict actually turned me on to Smart Suite. What I love about it is the way that it's set up. It allows me to pull something in called Smart Docs, so that when I'm creating and planning out, I actually have 52 weeks of content already planned out. Nice. When I have it planned out, I can use another tool called Magic Marketing. And that Magic Marketing tool, I plug in and say, hey, this is the topic I'm going to talk about because I've already done my research. I think this is the topic I want to cover. And then it will help me to outline it. Of course, I'm going in and editing and saying, no, I don't want to talk about that part, but I do want this. And once I create the outline, it spits out a lot of the rest of the content that I'm going to use for that stream. So between those and also a tool that I've started using recently more effectively called Tascade, it has an entire suite of AI agents, either that I can create myself with specific roles. So like, I want you to write this email. I want you to write the video descriptions. I want you to write a guest invitation. So I assign each of these bots, and then they're a part of an agency team. And whenever I'm ready to actually produce or to even do repurposing of that content, I can go in there and say, okay, team, get to work. Here's the link to the YouTube video. Do the things that I need you to do. So yeah, I'm big on tech, automation, simplified workflows and processes. One of the early days, in the early days before AI became a big thing, I was big on using something called Process Street, and also use that to create a checklist that basically would help me with my workflow. And so it would say, okay, you're ready for this next. Okay, go to this next step. So anything I can find that's going to make life easier, I'm on it. I'm testing it. I'm seeing if it works. But right now I have a really stellar flow going and I love what I'm using. And there's no need, at least for now, for me to make any changes to that system.
I guess in some ways, like that's the tricky thing. I think you've really got to find something that works for you, and
Yeah.
no two people are going to enjoy the same things. And I think sometimes there's that danger that whatever the new shiny thing is, you want to run and jump on that. And I think by all means explore it if you're interested and you like learning tools. And I think that's the thing about Tanya specifically is she loves this stuff. Like she loves getting nerdy with those tools. But I just worry sometimes that I see a lot of people that sort of jump from different tools every single week, and I'm like, you're wasting so much time taking your data from one place to another and relearning something. So, there's obviously trade-offs to be considered there, but I kind of, and you've already alluded to the fact, and it's a bit of a running joke on this show, that I am not personally a big fan of a generative AI, I should say, but I actually am a big fan of automation. And I guess in some ways, the thing I'm always looking for is, what are the small repetitive tasks that I can sort of give to other technology to automate for me? And what are the things where I really need to use my own voice and my own brain? And I mean, even this week, like we've had this scheduled for a couple of months, but I was still sort of trying to figure out the notes that I wanted to hit. And I know it would have been so tempting for a lot of people to go into ChatGPT and sort of, just have it generate something. And I thought, no, I'm going to just keep thinking about this. I'm going to organize my thoughts. And I don't know, to me, that's transformative. And to me, that actually adds to my self-esteem and my sense of well-being. And I know I guess what I'm learning is that's not true for most people. And I think the context in which we find...
I think it is too, Sam.
Yeah, I think the trap of AI is like losing that sort of self-confidence in your own abilities to do things. Yeah.
Yeah,
but that's not the conversation.
But you're right. I mean, and that kind of is the conversation, because the fact is that we do have to be careful that we don't become a society of robots ourselves, right? And that we are. So I never use AI as my starting point. I know some people that do, and I'm not knocking that, because to your earlier point, John, I think people have to do what makes sense for them. For my lifestyle, realistically, for what I need to get done, because I'm juggling not only my business, but also a full-time corporate job, also 2 daughters, also a husband who's overseas. Like there's a lot in my life. And the fact that AI has come into play has made things so much easier and allowed me to get things done that used to take me hours to do, now takes me minutes. But back to the point about human and humanity, I think for me, the importance is that I'm still using my brain first and saying, this is what I want to accomplish. This is what I think. And I'm using AI like the sauce. It's the enhancement. It's not the creator. I'm the creator. So I think there is danger in people turning over their thoughts to a machine. There's danger in that. And I don't recommend that, but I do see the power of AI allowing us to do things more efficiently and to amplify what we already know and to make that even more powerful.
Absolutely. I guess the other thing too, and I've heard you speak about this in the past, but like even... I believe you have some systems that literally will just email you with tasks you need to do after a live stream is finished. And I just love the simplicity of that. I think sometimes a checklist or a reminder or, a queue can just be amazing. So I guess if somebody is looking to maybe get started with some sort of automation in their business or their content creation, what would you recommend?
Ooh, there's so much. There's so much out there. And to your point, what's for some is not for all. But I would say one that I would recommend people look into potentially, if it's right for you, if the budget is right and all of that. Process Street was one of the tools that I early on, because I am an early adopter, which can be a bad thing sometimes, but I adopted Process Street as a tool when it was a lifetime deal. And that is one of the things that actually creates those checklists for me. So it creates a pre-checklist, and it starts that like on Sunday night for me, since I do my live stream on Thursday. And it'll shoot me a note and say, hey, have you come up with your title? Do you know what you're going to be talking about this week? Now, fortunately, because I have that content calendar, I can just pull from that if I need to. But sometimes we need to make a little shift because there's something happening in the world that we want to tap into. But I'm able to use that to generate checklists. Another tool would be, goodness, if you're using ChatGPT, if you're using other tools that are married to chat, like Tascade, if you're using Smart Suite, Airtable now has an automation process that you can tap into. You can connect it to something called Make that makes things super easy, or Zapier that makes things super easy. But here's what I would say. I said all that and gave a few items, but what I would really say is, to me, your automation and your workflows are very personal. So when I'm working with people, especially when I'm working with my one-on-one clients, I'm looking at, okay, what do you already have? Before you go out and buy something else, let's do an inventory. Let's take an audit of what you have, because something that you have may do the trick. You may not need to go out and buy Process Street or something else, because you've got a whole suite of things that you haven't been using, but you've been paying for them. So I would encourage people to just do that first. Look at what you have and see if those, because a lot of things are being updated right now with, with AI stuff, and they're being more refreshed. And you would be amazed at what you've been paying for that can do the trick.
Sure.
Yeah. And I feel like that leads us beautifully into App Therapy Club, because, and there's, I try to be polite about this, but there's a bit of a running joke that there's AppSumo Anonymous is a problem for some people, that they just buy all the lifetime deals and never get around to using them. But I know you do love that, and there's so much going on in the chat, and I promise I'll get to you in just a second. But before we do, I guess can you talk to us about App Therapy Club and how you encourage people to, I guess, work out whether a tool is right for them?
Yeah, so this is interesting. So back to what I said earlier about I've been kind of all over the place and spreading myself a little thin. This was one of my thin projects. So this was me saying, hey, I love talking about apps. We have Apps Anonymous, we have App Addicts, and we have App Therapy. And so I created this podcast where my goal, because I've paused it for now temporarily, my goal was to share with people more structured methods that they could use to not burn out and not go overboard by buying apps, by only investing in the ones that really make sense for you. And so one of the things that I was doing in that program is talking about, I was talking about some apps and doing reviews, but also sharing some tips and thoughts on how to systematically think about whether or not you really needed to make that purchase, right? By doing the audit. So I offered this planning sheet that I actually created initially in Airtable, but there's a Google Sheets version of it too. And it's a SaaS audit. And you go through and you basically are listing out, what are all the things that I have? What are all the software platforms that I have right now? And you can do this on a piece of paper, y'all. You can do it in Google Sheets yourself. But what are those apps that I have or tools that I have? How much do they cost? If I paid lifetime, mark lifetime. If I'm paying on a subscription basis, is it annual? Is it monthly? If you didn't pay anything for it, put free. But then next to that, what is the purpose or the objective of that tool? And then you're going to rank each of the tools based on how likely you're going to be to use those tools within the next 3 to 6 months. Because if you've got something that you're paying for and you're not going to use it, and you know that you're not going to use it because you haven't used it for the last 6 months, then that one needs to be put aside. But the whole thought process for me was, how can I help people to be more responsible?
Nice.
when it comes to us apps. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess like I don't mean to sound critical. It's just that I see a lot of people, small business operators, that like their entire business is cobbled together with 30 different AppSumo deals, and
Yeah.
it just makes me very nervous because sometimes the lifetime of the deal is the lifetime of the company, and that quick injection of cash may help the business, or it may just be, you know, one last
Mhm.
ditch for it to go away. But I guess the only thing I
Right.
would add to that is the great thing about AppSumo is you do get that trial period. So definitely test these things out. And if you decide it's not for you, then refund it.
Yeah. And the other thing to do, and I talk about this on the podcast too, is make sure you're reading reviews. Make sure you're studying and you're looking at what does their original website look like, even off of AppSumo. Go there, test out, trial things, and ask questions, because you can ask questions in there too. If you're seeing that customer service or the support is not responsive, if you're finding that people are writing reviews that are critical and that are sharing specific things that are going wrong, if you trial it and it doesn't work for you right out the gate, that means you need to turn that thing back in or not buy it at all. So, yeah, there are signs. And one of the things, too, is to look for sustainability, because there are certain tools that will forever be on AppSumo. And the challenge with that is that that is not a sustainable business model. And that always makes my eyebrow raise up a little bit, because I'm like, if you don't have money coming in, you're not going to survive. And then I can't invest in you, start loving what you have, and then it's gone.
Absolutely.
It's a risk.
Yeah. I mean, there are all kinds of opportunities out there, and I guess you just need to evaluate them. And, you know, getting back
Yeah.
to that thing we said earlier, not everything's going to work for everybody, but something might work for you. And I guess you've just got to
Yeah.
give yourself the opportunity to explore those things. So I just want to check in the chat because it's on fire, and I love that, but I'm being really bad and
it's good
ignoring the
chat
chat. So hello to Ender Trader who's joining us. Scott mentioned that Smart Suite is awesome. Again, I've never really heard of that outside of today's conversation. So I
Yeah,
might
me
have to
either.
check that out.
I'm definitely checking it out.
You have to check it out. It's pretty awesome. He was right. I fought him for that for months.
And Scott writes, you have to use AI as a tool by giving it information and just having it put it into a more accessible way. When I use AI, I give it my ideas and tell them what I want to do with it. So that makes sense.
Yep.
And again, Saeed recommends that you use Brain GPT first until you hit the wall, which I like.
I love that.
And Scott also says that he uses that as AI as a virtual assistant, not necessarily
That's right.
a replacement. Stefan's also saying that AI is a tool. Ender is, this is one of these things I've heard about, but I don't really know what exactly it is. But Missing
I
Ledger
have
is
it.
something that he's exploring at the moment on a 2-week trial. So I guess we'll look forward to hearing from you about that one in the future. There's a lot of love between Scott and Stacey for App Therapy Club as well. I won't read out all of those, but you know, you definitely have your fans here present today, which is lovely. And I guess Said's identifying app acquisition syndrome is a thing,
It
as opposed
is.
to gear acquisition syndrome, which we all know about as well. So
Yes. Yes. And I actually know the person that put up Missing Letter. I know that tool too. I have it as a lifetime deal. Hey. And it does have a lot of really good potential. There's a couple of things that are glitchy about it. So if you trial it, just make sure you put it through the ringer. One thing that's newer that they didn't have when they first came out is that you are able to upload your YouTube feed. So you can actually have your YouTube videos be repurposed into different types of posts. It's a little more work than if you're using like a regular blog RSS feed. But yeah, they have some potential. Just watch for a few things. I had way too many videos and way too much content for it to handle.
Right.
So it didn't work out well for me, but I still have it because I love going and seeing what they're doing to improve.
It's funny. I'm a bit of a control freak, and that's the other reason I don't like giving into AI is that I love doing things manually. And there was a point at which I saw a recommendation for one of those tools that takes your video and creates all the clips, and I thought, what the hell? I'll give it a go, and it literally crashed and couldn't do anything at all for several
What?
days. And the company was like, sorry about that. Here, you have a discount if you want to try it. And I'm like, no, I think I'm good. But thank you nonetheless.
I did one of those too, and it had a similar thing where it was like that one video processed for like 3 days, and I was like, you know what? I don't think this is gonna ever actually work.
Oh
And it was
my
like one of our
goodness.
streams, so it was only like an hour long.
So there are 3 tools I'm going to tell you both that you need to try, or maybe you don't need to, but they work well. They're like amazing. Video AI, so VIDYO AI, Opus Clip, amazing. And there was one that was a lifetime deal recently on AppSumo. I did a review of it called Minvo, MINVO, that is awesome. And I've been using that consistently. So whenever I do bring my team member on, she's plugging into that. And it's just going to, take a look and do little minor tweaks to what it's already creating. Opus, just with my 1 hour video, created 30
Yeah, I like Opus.
clips.
Yeah.
Beautifully done. Beautifully done. And what I do, honestly, instead of taking like we have right here with the horizontal video and we've got the branding and all the things that you have coming up, I use the isolated version of myself, the ISOs, and pull that in. And when it clips that, then it's beautiful because it doesn't have, accidental words flying across your face. Works really well for shorts and those little clips.
Absolutely. All right. We've been having so much fun talking to Tanya that I'm probably running a little bit behind schedule. So let's go to the next promo. We're going to come back and talk all about branding in just a moment.
Hi, I'm John Lacey, and in Build a Presentation Muscle, I want to talk about finding your voice, refining and sharing your message, using tools and technology to share that message, and looking after yourself as a creator.
And that's a promo for my podcast, Build a Presentation Muscle, which you can learn more about over at johnlacey.com. I must say, too, in terms of automation, I'm completely in love with my chatbot system. And it's funny, Sam told me for years how amazing this was, and I didn't really appreciate how awesome it could be until we covered it on the show a few weeks ago. So and it's via something called Mix It Up, which is currently Windows only, but they are working on a cloud version. So if you are a Mac user, it might be something in your future. But yes, hello to Roy, Tech Troublemaker, who's joining us. Lovely to have your company here as well. So obviously we're talking to the one, the only Tanya Smith, about all things video and workflows and branding and all of the things, and I'm really excited. I mentioned this to Tanya, like I've been awake, like it's Saturday morning here in Australia, and I've been awake really, really early for no other reason than I was excited to speak to Tanya, because she legitimately is one of my favorite people on the planet. So let's talk a little bit about branding, because I know you have a really strong sense of branding, and I kind of wonder what you would recommend to people in terms of how they show up and how they're seen online, especially in terms of video and live streaming.
This is a good question. And one of the things that I think I love to start with is by talking about the crux of the matter. So your video is an outward expression of who you are, what your business is about, if you have a business, what you talk about, all of those things. But ultimately, if you are, especially because I talk to a lot of business owners since I'm a business coach, one of the things that I really encourage you to do is to consider what is your mastery. So there's 4 M's. What's your mastery? What's your message? What's your method? And who's your market? When you have those 4 things and you understand clearly what those are for you, then it makes it so much easier for you to just be aligned in everything that you do. So when I thought about branding early on, because that was one of the places I started, was in career coaching, and I was helping people to better brand themselves, have that personal brand. And the thing that I realized a lot of times is people just assumed that meant, oh, I look a certain way and I'm using certain colors and I'm using certain fonts. But you can't start with that. You really need to understand your identity first. And so knowing who you're talking to, knowing what you want to be the master of, where you want to plant your flag and say, this is what I'm a specialist at. This is what I'm great at doing. And getting really clear around those 4 points helps you then to find the colors that match, that work for you, that really express that that's who you are. The fonts, the typography that you're using with those fonts, the everything else, the message itself starts to be clear and starts to be more aligned. So yeah, branding is a big deal to me, but I think it's so much more than just the appearance.
And I think that's important too, because I have certainly seen people that they will just decide their brand is to have pink hair, and that's great. But I can't tell you the last time I thought, I really need to hire somebody who has pink hair. Like, you do need to have some kind of service or skill or expertise that you're sharing. And I must admit, and you know, because I mentioned Windows, Scott's already having a reaction to that in the comments, and I'm trying really hard to not make this a Windows versus Mac thing or an Ecamm
Don't
versus
do it.
OBS Studio thing. I think all the tools are amazing. Use whatever you like. You have my blessing. But again, I think, like, if we, I know that you like to use Ecamm. Obviously, you're part of the Ecamm fam. But in terms of actually bringing all those resources together into live streaming software, like, how do you design those things, or do you have other people help you with those kinds of things? Because I think in some ways, like, and I think Sam alluded to this earlier, whenever you're running any kind of live production, you're wearing a whole bunch of different hats. And the thing that I kind of encourage people to do is just decide what's most important right now. And if it is just the conversation that you're having, then one or two people side by side, that may be all you need. But over time, you might want to explore other things. And I am really interested in your approach to Ecamm.
Yeah, I initially started with a walk-in closet and the basics. I had a computer, I had a simple microphone, and I just went. Like, I just got on camera. And as I started doing more of that, I started to understand what I love talking about and the things that I didn't want to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
And I started leaving those off to the side, and I started talking more about the things that I was passionate about. Then over time, as you mentioned, I started building up and building around. So this studio that I have, like you said, if you look 12, 13, 14 years ago, if you look at my older videos, I definitely did not have a set. When Ecamm came, with Ecamm, there was community that I started to connect to. There were people who became mentors, Luria Petrucci, Doc Rock. There were people that are in the Ecamm family that kind of said, hey, here's some things that we give you advice on. If you need a studio mic, this might be a good one. But it wasn't just them. It was also me taking it upon myself to do research and look at other people who were doing video and to see the things that I liked and the things that I didn't like. And I started just deciding on building different accessories. I knew that I was using this is a corner of a space. And initially, this is when I started building a true set. That's all it was a corner. So I knew I couldn't have the typical table back here with the bookcase that people were doing. I needed to get a corner thing, a corner stand. Just looked at the space that I had and tried to make the most of it because I knew Ecamm was super powerful. I then eventually started building up. So I have a whole room that you can't really see right now, but a whole room that is pretty much designed for every corner of this room. I could do any type of video that I want.
Nice.
So I built that out into a full out studio for myself to do different types of streams and video, but Ecamm specific. At first I was creating my own graphics, and then I was like, that's not my gift. So I hired other people. I hired, for instance, JP High Tech. I went and bought kits that other streamers had put together and were selling on their sites. And then I made them my own by changing the colors up, making sure that it matched up and complemented what I like to showcase in my space. So it's just been a process. If you could hear that in my story, it's been a journey. It wasn't something that happened overnight.
And I love the point you make there about, really considering your own space. And there's a green screen that's a very integral part of my setup, and it's only because there is nothing attractive behind me, and there's no way of me making anything attractive behind me. And I know some people do have a lot of feelings about some of the constraints of my setup, and they often tell me this, and I'm like, yes, thank you for sharing. But yeah, I love the way that you've considered in terms of different corners, and I've certainly seen. I know you've got a couch in one of those corners as a different kind of a set, and I love the flexibility of that as well. That's just amazing. But obviously, you're someone who's been doing this for a really long time, so it's probably not the place people necessarily want to start. But I just this comment has come in from Stefan, and it made me crack up. He says, "Yes, understand because I'm part of the OBS family."
All right, hey,
Yeah.
OBS. Woo.
Welcome to the fam. No, just to talk about me, I'm very jealous of your backgrounds, both of you right now, because of, I used to have a very nice background, and now I'm forced into figuring out what to do with this weird, it is not a corner, but a weird angular wall happening. And I'm like, oh, this is the worst thing ever. But when I did have, the nice set some 2 months ago, I also had sort of that directly behind me thing. And then if I tilt the camera 45 degrees this way, it was for board gaming. And if I tilted 90 degrees that way, it was for personal vlogs. So like, yeah, having that in mind is great, but don't stress yourself out about it. Like, go with the minimum possible thing you can do. What do you have available, and get going.
That's right. Don't let anything hold you back from starting and beginning, because everybody has to start somewhere. Like I said, I was doing a walk-in closet. So I just made the best of what I could with the shelves that were in there. I did a really messy office that you can't see this downstairs. I did, before I turned this space around, I had a space that was over there that had a piano behind me with a bunch of CDs. It was plain, but that wasn't the point. It was clean. Okay. So whatever you're putting together, wherever you are operating, make sure that it's not going to be a distraction from the message. That's the number one thing. So it was clean. It wasn't distracting from what I was saying. And that was the important thing to me, is to get on camera, to give the message, and not worry so much about all that aesthetics until later on when I got really serious.
That's a great point. And I think, it's so easy to get overwhelmed by all the possibilities. And I think just start where you are and just decide what is most important in that particular moment. So I'm loving this conversation, and I could talk to Tanya all day, but we won't do that because I know it's nighttime for her and she'll probably need to rest at some point. But let's get stuck into our last segment. So this is all about your vibe, Tanya, and I know you've got a great quiz. I'm just hoping you can tell us a little bit about this. So what's your live stream vibe?
Oh, this is okay. So this is one of my favorite things right now. I didn't even realize, I forgot you were going to bring this up. So Discover Your Live Stream Vibe is brand spanking new. I've had a version of a quiz out there, but I never got excited about it until recently. What I started to look at, because of my background, I do have a lot of certifications and all kinds of personality assessments and everything. My bachelor's degree was in psychology. My master's is in business, but my bachelor's degree was in psych, and I've always loved studying the mind. And so I thought, what if I could create a quiz that would be based on personality types that would help people to see, look, just because you're an introvert, or if you are an entertainer and you're someone who likes to dance and sing or recite poetry, or if you're someone who likes to be, an instructor type, or if you're someone who, whatever your specific style is, what if I could help you to figure out that there's still a place for you on live streaming? And so I decided to marry the idea of live streaming and the Myers-Briggs personality type assessment, because I'm a facilitator of that. And I thought, okay, this will be cool. And I was able to actually create these 4 quadrants of people based on styles that they fall into. And that's what the quiz does. Even though you don't know all of that, it's going to be very simple to take. But when you get done, you get a full assessment and a one-page report that gives you ideas on things to watch out for because of your personality, things to really go all in on, ways to improve, ways to leverage your personality to be on camera. So I just thought it was so much fun to create, and I'm excited that you put it up there because I haven't really told a lot of people yet. I'm just getting ready to start putting it out there.
I must
So
admit,
that's
I
cool.
haven't had a chance to actually do it myself, but I might do this straight after the show. But that sounds really
I
exciting.
have it
and I
open.
think you've got it open,
It's
Sam?
fun.
Yep, I'm ready to go.
Okay.
Nice.
Check it out. Y'all have to give me feedback. Tell me what you think. But I had so much fun putting it together and putting together like a short little video saying, hey, this is what you, based on your results, Yeah. So excited to hear your feedback.
Awesome. And I guess the other thing that you kind of mentioned there that I think is really worth underpinning is that we have access to all kinds of exciting tools and technology, and that's great. But I think sometimes there's a temptation to look at what other people are doing and feel like we have to emulate them and we have to dance and point and do all of the things. But really, the tools are there for you to do with whatever you choose to do with them and whatever's appropriate for you. And I think in some ways, we talk about consistency in content creation a lot, but really what I want to know is, can I rely on you as a person to be a consistent human being? That's often the thing that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
But definitely check out the Live Vibe quiz, which is in the chat. The link is in the chat there for you. I think it's in the video descriptions in various places. We do go out, this show goes out to all kinds of weird and wonderful places, so check that out when you can. But thank you so much, Tanya, for being here today. Like I said, I'm always looking for literally any excuse to hang out with you. So it's been really cool for you to join us today. Don't forget too that you can find Tanya Smith on YouTube and in all the various places. And again, I think my chatbot, it will give you that link as well. But yes, thank you so much.
I love your chatbot. I love it. So thank you. Thank you for having me, both of you. It's been fun. I love that I got a chance to spend some time with you in this space.
You, like I said, it's been a joy for me. And again, I'm slightly distracted by the chat, and I just wanted to bring this one up from Roy. He says Tanya is amazing. I want to be like her when I grow up.
No, Roy is awesome. He's uniquely him, and I love it. Troublemaker.
And Saeed was admiring the Funko Pops there as well, which I know is a great part of your set.
Yes.
Business Ghost Ready sort of asks, is that like the disc profile?
I would say that disc is slightly different because I also am familiar with disc. Myers-Briggs goes a little bit more in depth, but yeah, I mean, if you want to look at personality assessments and similarities, I guess you could say they're similar in that they both assess personality types, but there's a lot more historical and there's a lot more historical basis behind the Myers-Briggs, and it takes a little bit longer if you want to take the full assessment. There's a free one over at 16personalities.com, I think it is. That's a free and very limited version. But after I do this quiz assessment with folks, for people who want to take it even further, I'm creating a workshop where we're going to do a deep dive into Myers-Briggs and how to use that with your marketing and your sales pitches and how to actually incorporate that into the way that you are fully creating a sales cycle. So yeah, there's more to come on that.
Cool.
That's very exciting. So again, thank you so much for joining us. Just hang backstage for a little bit, and we'll talk once we wrap up a few things. But Sam, as we do wrap up the show, where can people go to learn more about you, watch your content, all that good stuff?
Yeah, you can find me over at samproof.tv. All of my social links are at the top left there. And coming this fall, I'm looking to start doing a daily morning live stream. So look out for that. It's gonna be a mess, I'm sure. And if you didn't get enough cats today, head over to cuteavalanche.com. Our fosters are heading out somewhere else, so it is running a playlist right now, and we're kind of looking for another foster or rescue to partner with to share their fosters on stream. So if anyone out there knows anyone who would be interested in reaching out to our 50,000 followers and getting some of their own attention, let me know. Yeah, contacts on the site.
Nice. And if you want to catch up with me, you can head over to johnlacey.com. We've got a whole bunch of articles on there, including a link actually to Tanya's show that I did really, really long time ago, and a great conversation that we had there. But I probably do need to update my website a little bit. But you can find all the social links at the bottom of those pages, and come and follow me on YouTube and LinkedIn and all the various places that I like to hang out. So thank you to everybody that's been in the chat. There's been so much happening. A lot of Tanya fans in there, and to know Tanya is to understand why that is the case. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget, if you want to check out that quiz, you can do that over at streamlikeaboss.tv/quiz. Thank you so much for joining us today. Next week, we're going to be talking about OBS Studio. There have been some updates to the software. We want to talk about that, and also some considerations about when and if you should upgrade your software, because I didn't actually even have a chance to bring this up with Tanya, but I understand that she sort of upgraded to a beta version of a Mac operating system, and it was a bit dicey. So we're going to talk about that next time. But thank you so much for joining us, and have a great week and a great weekend, and we'll talk to you again soon.